Well, good morning and welcome back to the Homeschool Shopping Channel. So tomorrow I have a pretty cool curriculum to show you. It is one I used for my kids during kindergarten grade 1. It's great for a variety of homeschool learners. It is secular, so it's up to you whether you like that or not, but I use both secular and Christian products, but it's something for you to consider, and it's very cool. Almost no prep as far as I'm concerned. Super fast, super easy, and covers a variety of subjects. So there's not stopping and starting different subjects. You just start this and it incorporates all the different subjects. Okay, so what are we talking about today? Today I'm going to help you problem solve. If you have a problem with your homeschool, you can leave it. If you have like a special needs problem, if you have a problem within your family, if you have a problem, I have dealt with a lot of these issues and I have solved some of them. So those are the issues that I'm going to be talking about today and answering your questions. So for example, and some are homeschool related and some are not. So let's jump right into it. So I might have to do a part 2 video because this might take a while. So for example, I have a child with autism. I have a child with ADHD. So and they have got them to learn a lot. And the reason, how did I get my children to learn so much is that I concentrate on the important stuff. So if you've seen my video where I show you how I teach a lesson, the main thing is to do while they're eating, I teach. So while they're eating, we're doing a lot of reading. I'm reading over science texts. I'm reading all this stuff. We don't do a lot of handouts. We don't do handwriting because that's a different subject. Them reading to me is a different subject. So basically, if you have a child that doesn't want to homeschool, I would suggest a couple things because I've been there. One is concentrate on reading, writing, and math. Those are your big things. Those are the main things. Those are the most important things. I would ditch grammar. I would ditch vocab. I would ditch spelling. I would ditch history, and I would ditch geography just for now. And then pair an undesirable activity with a desirable activity. So the undesirable is the homeschool stuff, right? They don't want to do it. The desirable activity is, let me guess here, the iPad. Well, okay, yeah, no problem. I get it. As soon as these 3 things are done, then go on to the other thing. So that's the thing is the curriculum I'm going to show you tomorrow might be up your alley, but really reading, writing, and math in general, it doesn't have to be extensive. It doesn't have to be, we're not talking to take a ton of time. And if you get into the habit of doing it every day, like spending 20 minutes or spending 30 minutes every day, that adds up to a lot of school time that you are doing. But again, if you look at my video, how, for example, you'll see my youngest who's 6, he knows a ton about science. Do you think that came naturally? No, it's that I picked the most important things out of the science curriculum. I picked the most important things out of the math curriculum. I picked the most important things out of the grammar, whatever it is, and I put it in this review book. And while they're eating, we do a review book. It's almost like a morning menu, if you will. Like if you wanted your children to learn a prayer or a hymn or affirmations, whatever it is, it's the same concept, except it's just the most important science concepts or whatever concepts in those sheets, and we just flip through them really quick. Another thing I would consider, and this also leads me into question number 2, is screen time questions. I'm telling you, it made 100%, it made such a dramatic difference in my homeschool. So what I used to have is I used to do a checklist, and I used to be like, all right, when you finish this checklist, then you can begin your schooling. So the problem is that then you're living for the future, right? You're just getting through this stuff to get through it. You're not actually enjoying art. You're not actually enjoying building things. You're not actually enjoying playing games. You're not actually enjoying reading. You're just trying to get through it to the really fun stuff, the really great stuff. And I know what you may be thinking is that, you know what, my child's so difficult that I need this tablet time so that I have time myself. Now, 100%, that's what I thought. That is what I thought. That is what I believed. I now know different. And this is what I would say is, so the week before, start saying, we're going to cut it out because of our brains. We're going to take a break from it. And they'll be like, well, what can we watch? Can we watch anything? Will we ever watch it again? It's not a punishment. It's to help our brains, and I'm doing it too. Because understand as well that nothing's more interesting than my phone. Like if I'm being truthful and honest, watching YouTube videos, reviewing YouTube videos, searching things, Googling things, buying things, you can do that all on this one device, and nothing's more interesting than that. So that was my getaway. That was my escape. And I kept waiting until I could do that, right? Like, okay, well, when they go to bed, I can do that more. So then I'm doing the same thing. I'm just trying to get through dinner. I'm just trying to get through this. So I get it. That doesn't mean I wasn't enjoying homeschooling. That doesn't mean that. But so it's the same thing for the kids. So then this is what I started to do. So you'll get your screen time back, you will get your time, and you will have it, it'll be better. It'll be such a better break, because right now, I would question, unless it's the most interesting video game, I feel like they keep needing to up it. Like they need this new game, they need this new, can they have a new world? Can they buy this? Can they buy that? Can they, and it's not as, and then outside of that, the freaking off the walls. One wasn't, but one was. And sleeping's not going well. And getting to sleep is very difficult. Anytime they are not fully entertained is extremely tense. And I kept thinking, well, they just need to be more entertained. When we're out to eat, he just needs to be more entertained. I kept thinking that. And it was such a lie and a delusion that I was not aware of at the time. But I knew it was better for the brains if we did this. And I was willing to do it too. So I said, okay, now understand that I also said, you're going to get some money. We're going to go to the thrift store so you can buy some toys, because we'd gotten rid of a lot of toys because they didn't play with them. Also remember that when you're doing this, they need to relearn how to play. Your week is going to suck. Your week, that first week, oh my goodness, because they need you all the time, because they don't know what to do with themselves. They don't know how, they're feeling dysregulated. They're feeling upset. Like, they're not used to it. They're feeling uncomfortable. And uncomfortability, who's ever felt it, that's probably not a word, sucks. So I get it, because to grow, you need to feel uncomfortable. So I do understand. So just be available for them for that week. Try to be as calm and patient as you can. My intention was not to have any screen time at all. Now, I introduced the Yodo. The Yodo, of course, was not well received because it's not an iPad, it's not a tablet, it's not Minecraft, it's not these most interesting games, it's not these learning games, it's not this YouTube, it's not these green YouTube, it's not these Netflix, it's none of these things. So I get that at that time, Yodo is just a bunch of stories, but it's a bunch of educational stories as well. So there's two different types, and it grows with your kids. That's why I chose it over the Tony, because the Tony's great in some ways. Like if your child listens to Paw Patrol, I get it. The Paw Patrol characters, they're characters. So I understand that. And so one of the things we did was like, okay, wait, like introduce it. I introduced it and I said, after dinner, this is what you guys can do. You just have to wait. It takes about a week or two, and they will start playing so much together and coming up with such creative things. Another thing that I was doing is I was buying so much stuff to try and entertain the one. So many crafts, so many activities. I didn't need it. It was just a waste of time. It was a waste of money. They would do it for 2 seconds. And that was the other thing, is now they're drawing more, because now you're doing art just to do it, because what else have you got to do, right? Like I'm sitting there playing games with my kids because what else do I have to do if my phone isn't really an option at that time? So it does work out. But then what I did is, okay, so then I introduced in the afternoon, as soon as they're done their schoolwork, but not until 1 p.m. So instead of doing, okay, when you're done checklist, you can do that. No, what I did is, okay, as long as your checklist is done and 1 o'clock is here, then 1 to 3, you can, or 1 to 3 or 1 to 4, you can watch PBS Kids. Now, previously they would be like, that's the most boring thing that ever happened. I'm not going to watch that. Why would I watch that? Why would I watch that? If you are in Canada, you can use, or the UK, get a VPN. It's just an app on your phone. It's like $24 for 2 years. I have NordVPN, and just put in that you live in the United States on there. Just select United States, and then you'll have access to PBS Kids. It's free, and they have like 100 channels, 100 different TV shows, 100 different, and it's just all educational. It's all simple, basic. So then they were like, well, if there's something else, I might as well watch it. So then they started watching it. And then, yeah. So then I had calmer children. I got them to have screen time. So I got to have time to myself, because that is a thing, is that if you're dealing with special children, you need more time to yourself. And time to yourself, FYI, is not cleaning the kitchen. Time to yourself is not grocery shopping. Time to yourself is not taking a shower. Time to yourself is sitting in a chair, either working on a hobby you like, reading, dozing, doing nothing. It doesn't matter. Not paying bills. That's not time to yourself. That's paying bills. So I highly encourage you to consider it like that and do some time. But then that being said, tying it back to the original question is, once that screen time is not an option, well, then they will want to homeschool more. They will. We homeschool a ton because it's fun. What else are we doing? Like, you might as well sit next to me, and we might as well try and figure out some of these grammar problems and some of these, like vocab situations and see what we're doing, and read a lot of books. I read a massive amount, which is why I'm glad we have the Yodo, so that after dinner I don't have to read because I'm not in the mood. That's when I'm going to hang out with my husband. I don't really want to read, like, I read tons, right? And that's another thing is now teaching them. So before, when they used to watch TV during lunch or during breakfast and lunch, I could put on something educational. I always read to them during breakfast, but like lunch, but one of them wasn't happy when I read to them. Like he was angry and annoyed, and now he loves it. Because it's tough to be like, oh, well, YouTube's so entertaining. Even if you select channels or select certain shows, it's so entertaining as opposed to mom sitting there reading. Well, now it's not. Now reading is entertaining. So since there's no other option, right? And so, yeah, so then teach during breakfast, lunch, dinner. You can do dinner, but snacks as well. So no, you're not eating with them because you're working. So do it before. Eat before by yourself. I eat by myself. Or sometimes I eat while we're playing on the floor. I'll just have food next to me and I'll chew on it while playing. But that's up to you. Okay, so the next problem is sibling rivalry. So if your kids are of the same gender, if they are of the same gender and close in age, you might have some sibling rivalry on your hands. So one of the things I learned is from the book Sibling Rivalry. I didn't glean too much from that book, but one of the things I learned was to never pit your kids against each other. So like, for example, racing to the car or racing around the block, be like, it's kids against mom. Who's going to get there first? Or kids against parents, or boys against mom, because I have boys. Who's going to get to the house first, right? And so stuff like that. And also what I did too, though, is so I read a lot of books because there were so many fist fights. There was so much crying. It was freaking endless, like endless. It has so much, even when they were really, really young. And so I read a ton of books on it, honestly. And then my dad gave me this book from like the 60s. And I read it. And at first I was like, there's no way I'm going to get anything from this book. But he's like, I read it when you were young. Yeah, whatever. So, but I read it. And yeah, there's some things in there that I'm like, no, because it still talked about spanking and did stuff like that. So I was like, no, that's not my thing, like at all. But in this one chapter, it said it dealt with sibling rivalry, and they said, stay out of it. They said it creates so much retribution. And I've noticed that the fights last so much longer when I get involved, so much longer when I get involved. And then there's tears, and there's not this. So what I did was I did a couple things. So first of all, I waited till the youngest could take a punch, because I figured if things went south, and that was like my worst case scenario, is he old enough that he can take a punch? Which I get it. It's not an ideal scenario, but I was talking like bare bones if that happened. I didn't want that to happen, but if it did, could he survive it? So I waited till he was strong enough, like 4, and I was like, okay, I think he's solid enough that if one of his older brothers accidentally loses it and pushes him or does something, which is not ideal, I'm not for that, but okay. Then what I did is I spent a lot of time showing them how to make up with each other. Showing them how to make up. And when they were fighting and screaming, just being like, oh, you didn't like that. Like narrating, which is another thing I learned from the Sibling Rivalry book. But what I learned from Janet Lansbury, and she does a ton of emotional stuff, is to narrate their emotions. Because when they're young, I really wanted them, because a lot of people have addictions. And this is just what I've learned in my life, is a lot of people who have addictions, OCD and things like that, is part of it, if not all of it. I'm not here to debate that because I don't know, is you're denying your emotions. So you're doing these activities in order to avoid feeling feelings. So always checking in with them and being like, hey, how do you feel right now? Like, what's going on? Like, just randomly throughout the day, so that they learn to check in with themselves. And so when whatever they're doing, when they're upset, like, hey, you're upset right now. You know, even when they're babies, like, and they're screaming, like, oh, you didn't like that. You really wanted that truck right now. You hate that you have to wait. You don't like that I made this for lunch. Stuff like that. So always narrating it for them, just to help them label it. Now, keep in mind that when they start to get older, if you label incorrectly, they're going to be pissed at you. So that's when you're like, hey, tell me what's going on. So what I do, so then I taught them to make up with each other. You know, let's bring a blanket over. Let's give him his stuffed animal. Let's tell him we're sorry. Let's like pat him on the back and give him a hug. I also taught them too, that if someone is mean to you, leave the room. If someone hits you, leave the room. So that way you don't have to be in there. You're teaching them, if someone hurts you, leave the room. It's a non-negotiable. I'm not going to be like, oh, Bobby hit me. Leave the room, dude. Like, that's what I would do as an adult. And I'll talk about that more later, if you're what to do if your child hits you or is hitting themselves. But basically, so then I taught them to do that. And then I tell them, I'm always here for a hug. Always here for a hug. And then sometimes they'll come and they'll tell me what happened. And I don't judge. I just say, tell me more. Tell me more. And I let them tell me. I don't judge. I'm not a judge and jury. I'm just here to listen and give you a hug if you would like a hug. And that's what I do. So that is how, and it completely stops sibling rivalry. And they do fight. Sure they do. But they make up really fast. Like, you'd think you're like listening, you're like, ooh. And then they make up and I'm like, oh, okay. Whew. All right then. So another thing is, and that went into, so as far as emotional regulation is concerned and teaching your kids how to manage emotions, the next thing is zones of regulation. You can Google zones of regulation and get it's just a sheet of different colors, like the occupational therapist showed it to me. And all it is, so it's different colors. And if you want to get back to green, so when you're in red, asking your child, hey, what can I do to help you? And telling them, so you spend a week going, wow, you're in red. You're definitely in green. It doesn't matter their age. You're in red, you're in green. I could tell you're in red. What can we do to get you back to green? How can I help you get back to green? Because you're on their side, you're not against them. They're dealing with a lot of emotional stuff that they have to figure out on your own. And you are there not to judge them, but to support them. Keep in mind two things. If your child hits you, you leave the room. And you tell them, I don't stay here. When people hurt me, I don't stay in the room with them. I leave the room. Leave the room, shut the door, that's it. Done. If they destroy your stuff, I would honestly tell you, pack up your stuff. Pack up your stuff, anything that's going to get destroyed, keep a lock on your room. And yeah, that way there's no drama. They're not getting attention from it. They're not, sometimes people, especially with ADHD, one of the games they play is, hey, you're not upset enough. How can I make you upset? Like, how can I do that? And sometimes it's very unconscious. Like, it's not like they're intending to upset and infuriate us. So yeah, that's what I would do. I'd pack up my stuff and that's it. And yeah, I mean, if you're able to, you can lift and hold them and say, oh, I'm not going to let you hit such and such when they're younger, right? Like, I'm not going to let you hit John, and then just hold them and hold like tightly in your arms if you can. But if your child is hitting you, that's what I would do. No, I don't stay in the room where people are hitting me. And like, that's not okay with me. Because you're modeling to what they should do if someone does it to them. And then it completely stopped it after a bit because there's no attention there. If I'm not giving attention for that, well then okay. If they break their own toys in anger, well, yeah, I can see why that would make you sad that you don't have that anymore. Like I get that. But again, you're on their side. You're not there to rub their face in it. Like, yeah, I mean, it's a natural consequence. This is broken. You don't have that anymore. Or this was broken and we were going to go here, but we have to use that money to pay for that. And again, you're not rubbing their face in it, right? It's just like, this is natural consequences. This is just, it's like very matter of fact. You should be a calm, virtuous person, which I get it. We're not perfect. Like, so there are times that I've lost it. Of course there are. But you forgive yourself and you move on and you try to, like if I do something that's wrong, I say, hey, I shouldn't have done that. I should have acted differently in the situation. Yeah. And I will try better for next time. I will do better. Okay, if they're hitting themselves, same thing. So I had a son that would hit himself. And it was very distressful to watch. And I tried coaching him through it. I tried talking to him. I tried tons of stuff. And finally, when I just couldn't take it anymore, I just started saying, I love you too much. I can't watch you hit yourself. And I would leave the room. He did it 2 more times. He never did it again. But I'm telling you, I tried a million different ways, not a million, but a lot, and none of them worked. And finally I was like, I just can't watch you hit yourself. It's amazing how just lack of attention, like it ends a lot of problems. Because that's the thing with ADHD children especially. I mean, some children are, but so stubborn, some of them. So you can't get in a battle of wills with them because, and especially like 2 of my boys especially, super smart. And so they're really good with the reasons and the comebacks and the reasons that it's not their fault and the reasons that it's your fault. And it's like, well, you're entitled to your opinion. I do not see it that way. Oh yeah. So do I need to know, I don't know if I went in this or not. Do I need to know my child's learning style before teaching? Absolutely not. Because to be honest, it could change as well. Not only that, but I think it's more important to know if you're having problems with your child and they're not learning, then it might just be that way that like then maybe they learn better through videos. Maybe they learn better through reading. Maybe they learn better when you're teaching them while they're eating. Maybe they learn better with repetition. Maybe they learn better with games and some fun stuff where every time you throw the ball at them, you ask them a question or something. And if they get it right, they get to throw it back at you or something like that. Or they ask, what I do a lot is, now it's kind of backfired because it happens all the time. Like I'll be sitting there at dinner and someone will quiz me, is to quit. I ask them a math question. They ask me a math question, right? Or I ask them 5 math questions and then they get to come up with one for me, stuff like that. So we're teaching each other, right? So for example, and then number blocks, like number blocks taught my son, and he's very advanced at math, but he loves number blocks. He loved them when he was younger. I don't know. I just don't think it's that important, but maybe that's just me, because some kids learn better through videos. And I feel like you test it out. Do they learn better through videos? Do they learn better? Like if you're watching that video with them and then you put down the key points in a notebook and then you guys review it every week. Do they learn visually and these are things that I feel like a fancy test isn't going to help you, that you just have to see. You will see from teaching your kid what works and what not. If you put a giant board up on the screen, like a history timeline on your wall, will they reference it or know it or get something from it and you go through it? Or there's some things that sometimes, even though my child is, say, a visual learner or whatever, a kinesthetic learner, that he still wouldn't get something from that. Like we'll still be studying this one concept and he still won't be able to pick it up so quick. So I mean, I do think it's useful and I get that, but at the same time, I don't know. I feel like that there's other ways you can problem solve if something's not learning. Like, yeah, I know it's kind of a useless answer, I guess. And you can also learn through what they love and pair. So if they like the Titanic, well, then read a lot on the Titanic. That's history. But also, hey, if you had 3 Titanics and then you added 2 more Titanics, how many would you have? And I don't know my kids' learning style. I have no clue. No idea, yet they learn brilliantly. I do know that one of them loves to learn through reading, and I do know that one of them loves to stand at one end of the room and have me quiz him, and he loves challenges. Like, I don't think you can do this. Yeah, right, you can't read to me. I don't think you'll know any of the words on this page. Whereas my other son is horrified when I do that. Like, oh, that's so mean. Like, no, it's not mean. Or when I say, you know what? I'm not going to give you any more food. I'm not going to give you any lunch until you complete this Lego challenge. Obviously, I wouldn't say that if it was like, but my other son's like horrified I did that. Like, whereas this kid is like, or I go, you don't get lunch. I say, you don't get lunch until you show me one, I don't know, you build one Lego structure that can float. And that kid's like, oh, I could do that. Oh, you don't think I could do that? And he's like building away. Whereas my other son's like, oh, that's the meanest thing I ever heard. How dare you say that? It's like, yeah, I don't literally mean it. I get it. It takes a lot of things literal. I don't mean it like that. But anyway, so for me, that is, and remember, it's the basics: reading, writing, and math. Stick with the basics and add stuff on as you go along. Again, that curriculum I'm going to show you tomorrow is pretty cool, but it doesn't teach you how to read. That's the thing. So, okay, again, the iPad, I refer you back to my screen time question. I would listen to that video, that section of this video. Go back to it if you haven't listened to it yet, so that you fully understand the impact it had. And more than any other vitamin and supplement and everything I tried. Now, understand, who didn't sleep. This child did not sleep through the night when he was born. He would call it in the night, even when he was half asleep. He was always screaming in his sleep. I mean, this child just did not sleep at all. And now he finally does. And there's certain things that I do that I also use like adults. Like, in order to sleep through the night, you need to make sure you have enough iron, like greens. I assume it's the iron that you get from having greens. And by that, I mean like romaine lettuce, like a salad. And so in order to get that, to sleep through the night, that is what I've noticed for adults in our household. And that is what I have noticed for, so I automatically have the children eat salad. Well, how do I have them eat salad? Well, look on the screen and I'll show you a picture of how I tear up lettuce and put it in as if it's chips, and then they dip it in French dressing. You can get French dressing, Russian dressing, Catalina dressing. They don't have dairy in them, and they're very sweet. Yes, they're full of sodium. Yes, they're full of sugar. But here's the thing, is you're just dipping it in. It's not like you're like licking it up and drinking the whole thing in it. And so to get those greens a few times a week, or they can have it in a wrap. So they get a choice. They can have it in a wrap where I just put hummus on it. And just that, and just those things, and do it. Another alternative is the cookies I'm going to make at lunch today. The cookies I'm going to make at lunch will have oatmeal, some dark chocolate chips, we'll have some flaxseed, we'll have bananas, lots of bananas. The chocolate chips are for sweetness, they're dairy free. And then they will have a little bit of seaweed, a little bit of seaweed flakes, Atlantic dulse flakes, which you have to be careful with those because they really will make something taste kind of for some people. I put them on my wrap, and I have wraps. Every day or two, I have a wrap with it on there. But that will definitely help as well. So that's not the only thing, but that's how I get them to eat that. And I give it to them like while they're watching TV. I'll be like, here's the snack. And here's the thing is I'm not getting in an argument about it. I'll tell you next how to deal with a picky eater, or I'll tell you right now is, so I would put, so I guess I have to do it separately on this, but I had the world's pickiest eater, and people who have a picky eater fully understand that they will not eat unless things are specific like this, and it's like this, and oh, you messed it up, and how dare you, and it's not right. I would put it in front of him and be like, you don't have to eat it. I understand it's not how you want it. I understand you're not in the mood for it. You don't have to eat it. So that's kind of how I do it with a lot of his food now. And I'll tell you that goes into how to deal with a picky eater. But so for sleep, so the greens, I already told you about that. You can also do it in smoothies. You can put some greens in smoothies. Spinach doesn't count, unfortunately. I've done a test on myself, and I've heard a doctor once told, I heard them say that spinach for some reason doesn't count as enough of a green. It's not. For some reason, I don't know. When I did a test on myself, is for a week, I ate only spinach, and I wasn't sleeping by the end of it. So I know that I do need those greens. Now, I dealt with insomnia for quite a few years, so I'm very specific about what I eat. And the next thing I know is you need magnesium, especially if you don't eat animal products or you don't eat dairy. Magnesium is definitely important, but however, you can't have too much. So any vitamin you have, I always say take the weekend off. I always have everyone in my household take weekends off because you don't want an overload of that vitamin, because the symptoms you will have will mimic the deficiency. It's so odd. It's so odd. It's so odd that I know this, but I studied health for so long because I was sick for a while, and I studied it for like 10 years, a decade, reading every health book, every diet. And that's another thing for diets is they're like, hey, you know, fat is bad, and hey, fruit is bad. They can't be mixed together. If you it's not so much with kids, it's not an issue with kids, but with adult, if you have a high fat diet, you can't be putting fruit in because it'll offset your blood sugar. And the same true is if you have a ton of fruit, you can't have a lot of high fat because it'll offset your blood sugars. That's why you kind of got to choose. You either go vegan or you go keto, but you can't really have like too much of a mixture. If you will, unless you have a moderately low fat diet, which is what I do. And then I have fruit. So that's just what I do. Now, 2 is exercise. The kids got to get enough exercise. So besides magnesium, they need a bunch of exercise. This is key, is number 3, is wake them up at the morning every single day at the same time every single day, at the same time every single day, 6 a.m., especially if they are poor sleepers. I don't wake my other one up. He gets up when he's ready. But that's because he'll go to sleep when he's ready too. Like, I don't have to be there to supervise his sleep and help him get to sleep. He'll go to sleep when he's tired, and he'll wake up when he's tired, roughly about the same time. This kid, every day, 6 a.m., he's got to be woken up. Every morning at 6 a.m., he's got to be woken up. It doesn't matter if your kid goes to sleep 5:30. 6 a.m., his ass is getting up, and you're waking him up gently, not roughly, but you're waking them up so that they get used to. That was just one of the big things on the insomnia stuff that I took, that one of the big lessons that they said was get up at the same time every morning. And so I just think it's key to him going to bed at the same time is him getting up at the same morning, because he would sleep in and sleep and sleep and sleep and sleep. Well, he gets, in my opinion, he gets sufficient amount of time to sleep, and he's finally started like just the last 2 days waking up by himself naturally before the 6 a.m. wake up time, which I think is amazing. Now, no tablets before bed. I mean, cut out screen time as much as you can, except for a little bit. I'm telling you, because then when he goes to lay down in bed at night, even if he's not having a tablet, he's bored and he's stressed, then he's anxious because now he's bored. And sometimes in the body, anxiety can feel like, boredom can feel like anxiety, just like anxiety can feel like excitement. And so your kid's laying there and they're stressed because they don't have anything. And one of the things you could do is you can have them occupy themselves with toys and play with toys in their bed. But it's just best if you get rid of the iPads, at least for the majority of the day. Listen to my screen time thing again and see. Again, these are what I worked. These are what I did. And what helped us to finally get him sleeping through the night. And he was not naturally sleeping through the night, even when he was born. And it went on and on and on and on for years, until I started implementing these steps. So now remember what I said is like, anxiety can be very high for kids at night if they're laying there alone. And so that's why sometimes they want to sleep with you, right? And then when they wake up in the night and you're not there, it messes with them, because it's like if you went to bed with your pillow and you woke up without your pillow, well, you'd be like, well, I got to find my pillow so I can go back to sleep, right? Because it's your pillow. Well, you're their pillow. And so this guy from Yale said, listen, this is what I tell parents to do. And it was the best thing I heard on it is to have them go into the room and start off at 6 minutes. Just be like, you know what? You're just going to sleep here for 6 minutes. So we get you comfortable in this bed. We get you used to it. Because if you don't do that, they're just going to lay there full of anxiety. Who's going to sleep when they're freaking anxious, right? That's really tough. So this time they're super relaxed in their bed. They're super relaxed because they know they only got to stay there for 6 minutes and then they come out. Next night, 7 minutes. And then eventually you get up to 15 minutes and they'll start to doze off. When they wake up, do the same thing. He says, just bring them back into your room. Or the next day, start off, just be like 15 minutes and then you come sleep in my room. And they can fall asleep because they're super relaxed. I also have this bear that lights up for him that he can use as well. So those are all my best tips for sleeping. That has really, really helped us for sleeping. A good vitamin, I hate that we use Haya vitamins, but I think I'm going to order them again, is their multivitamin. I think is really good because it's got a lot of sprouts in it. It's got a lot of stuff in it. So I do think it's really good. I just don't like the price point on it. I can't remember what it is, but in my head it was too much. Okay, and so the last question. Oh, picky eater. What do I do about a picky eater? So my son was so picky. I mean, like aggressively picky. Like if it was not perfect, it was not screaming every meal. Every meal was like, make it again, like so upset, even when he was like just a baby. And so what I started doing is I read a bunch of books on it and no one told me anything about it. Like it's not a thing that people were like, oh, maybe he doesn't like the texture. Maybe I get it, but he's got to eat something. And so finally what I did is I decided this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put 5 foods on a plate. I'll put 5 foods. So I put some fruit, I put some nuts. You can see the picture. I put some fruit, I put some nuts, maybe peanut butter sandwich, maybe just 5 different things on a plate, separated off. I put it in front of him, listen to him screaming, and say, I know that's not the way you like it. I know you're so upset, right? Because remember, I'm kind of trying to help him through these emotions, like helping him identify his emotions, right? Because we started when he was 3. And yeah, you don't like this. Like, this is not the way you are. I understand that you do not have to eat and then leave the room. So for a while, I didn't eat lunch with him at all. I would leave the room, breakfast or lunch. I would leave the room or dinner. And I would go in the kitchen, I'd clean the kitchen because it's his business. I can't force the kid to eat. It was his business whether he eats it or not. And if he didn't eat it, well then, hey, snacks at 10 o'clock. It's not punishment. It's just the way things go. Snacks at 10. Yeah, I wish you had more food too. I totally wish you had eaten that lunch. I totally do, because you're on their side. And be like, I can't bring out any food till 10 because snack's not till 10. Okay, because you're on their side. And then lunch is at noon. Again, like 5 foods on a plate, 3 foods on a plate. And hey, yeah, no, I get it. Oh yeah, that toast isn't the way you want it. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I did not get that white part off the orange. Like, yeah, I get that. I get that. I can see that. You do not have to eat it. I still say that a lot. You do not have to eat it when he's upset about something, because it still continues. He still gets upset about stuff. Like his waffle today or whatever it was he was eating yesterday. I think it was the toast that I made wrong. Like, hey, I get that. You do not have to eat it. Or his eggs last night. I made his eggs wrong. Yeah, you do not have to eat them. And still he'll eat them because, you know, again, the pressure's off. I don't care if you eat it or not. It's not my problem, which I understand sounds rough, but it's not. It's his relationship with food. It's his job to eat the food. It's just my job to make it. And that's what I made. And I get it. You don't like that. And you know, next time I'll try harder. That's it. And so that worked. And so that worked. That worked. And that's the only thing that has worked, is that's it. It's the only thing that has worked. If you have something you want your child to do and they are not doing it, I refer you to Dr. Kevin Lamont, who wrote a great book called The Powerful Child, which I read. And Dr. Kevin Lamont, and his book, it might be Lamont. I don't know. It might be Lamont. I have no idea. Lemon? I don't know. Anyway, he said, if you have for example, if you have schoolwork that you want your child to do and they are not doing it, just wait. wait. They will come ask you for something. They will ask you for a drink. They will ask you for like some water. They will ask you to get a toy off a high shelf, put some toys up high that they love. They will ask you to play their iPad. They will ask you for the Wi-Fi password. They will ask you for something. And even if they're older, they'll ask you for car keys, for a ride. They'll ask you, yeah, absolutely. As soon as the garbage is taken out, first we do the garbage, then we do that. So use the words first and then, because it's not a punishment thing. It's not a manipulation thing. And let them complain. Like, whatever. You don't have to listen to it. You can leave the room. But yeah, first, then this. And they'll complain like you wouldn't believe, but they'll get it done. They'll get it done, but they will complain and complain. Fine, whatever. You have to allow them that. Like, choose your battles. In my opinion, you need to choose your battles. Choose your battles. And I get it. They're doing 75 things that irritate you. Only pick a few. And in one of the videos I did, basically how to discipline, but essentially it doesn't happen very often. But mainly I just wait. So let's say you're getting into a battle of wills and you have a kid who's like, will you give me a fork? I'm not going to eat unless you get me a fork. What you can say is, to avoid this stupid battle, is, you know what? Yeah, I'll get you a fork this time, but next time I need you to do it. I'm going to need you to get your own fork. Okay, because therefore you've laid out the rules. You've laid out the rules for next time. Now they know next time. My big thing is everyone knowing that we're on the same page and we know for next time. So say your child, now understand if they're young and they're running outside or whatever, understand what you have control of and what you don't. They're 3 years behind a lot of times, social, emotionally. So they're not really into listening, but what's the matter?
There's nothing to do.
There's nothing to do? Can you say please, like, and subscribe?
Writing the phone.
Oh, you're so sad. He's so sad. There's nothing to do.